La Marzocco refers to the GS3 as a countertop legacy, and honestly, I don't think that's hyperbole. You can trace its roots all the way back to 1970, when they introduced the GS, one of the earliest and most widely adopted dual-boiler espresso machines, and also featuring La Marzocco's very own saturated group design, or Gruppo Saturo. Hence the name GS. Then fast forward to 2008, and the GS3 as we now know it hit the market. And now, in 2022, it's built a reputation as a machine with all the features and functionality any espresso enthusiast would be happy to have on their bar. And arguably, the one GS3 model that many baristas lust after is the manual paddle, or MP for short. This allows you to manipulate the pressure in real time as your espresso brews, leading to a whole new variable for baristas to nerd out on, but also argue about on forums and Facebook groups. But the question is, does its reputation, build, and control stand up to day-to-day ownership, and the growing number of machines offering the same or similar features for less cash? Looking straight on at the GS3 MP, it's pretty clear that the focus is intended to be on the group. And that makes sense, because that's where 95% of the action happens. It's where the paddle is, which is more or less the on-off switch, and the pressure controller. And on the flip side is where the fresh yum-yum juice gets made. The group itself leads back into the machine, and is attached directly to the coffee boiler through a hollow neck. It's essentially an extension of the boiler itself, lending to its temperature stability and the term saturated group. And speaking of boilers, of course, there are two of them. A 1.5 liter for coffee and a 3.5 for steam. Both boilers are PID controlled and can be adjusted via the keypad on the machine. On newer GS3s, these adjustments can also be made via the connected application. Other internal features include a rotary pump and a 2.5 liter reservoir, which, among all the brass, steel, and electronics, lends to its heavyweight status at 73 pounds. But beyond that, the machine on the surface is relatively simple, and this leads me to what really matters, is how all these parts and pieces come together as a whole and perform in terms of making espresso. As you maybe realized from the overview, the GS3 is a bit of a tank in the world of home machines. And because it's got such big boilers and heavy hardware, it takes quite some time to get all that steel and brass up to temp. So from a cold full off to ready to roll, you're looking at about 30 to 40 minutes. But because of that beefy build, once it's ready, it's very stable and can keep up with high demand both from the group and the steam wand. When it comes to pulling shots, the paddle can be used in two ways. If you just want a simple full pressure shot, you can just move the paddle all the way on, let it ramp to max, and then all the way off. But if you're getting a manual paddle machine, a lot of the fun and nuance is in its ability to control brew pressure from start to finish. The paddle itself has some resistance to it, but this ensures that adjustments are made with intention. But this can also make small corrections difficult since the force needed to move it can easily overshoot your pressure target. But when you hit your target, and even sometimes when you don't, the results in the cup are well worth the additional focus and effort the MP requires. Having that control gives you a broad ability to change and manipulate a coffee beyond the typical espresso variables of grind size, temperature, and yield. When it comes to the steam, the GS3 kicks out commercial grade power. It's consistent, reliable, and you can go back to back without hesitation. Also, the wand itself gives you a good amount of adjustability in every direction, as it sits on a ball joint. This gives you the ability to find the sweet spot and churn out that shiny, silky microfoam. In the end, the overall design of the GS3 allows for a more open and airy, less cramped workspace, including its group clearance from portafilter to tray. Which from a workflow perspective is something I appreciate, after spending years working under the overhang on the Mini. As easy to use as the manual paddle is, it has one glaring flaw that's buried in the engineering of how the paddle controls pressure. Essentially, the conical valve that's used in the MP is designed to block water from entering the group to reduce pressure and then allow water to increase. Functionally, of course, it works well, but at any point where the valve isn't fully open, the water being sent to the group is blocked and then rerouted and dumped into the tray. This, as you may expect, can really crank through water, especially if you go for long pre-infusions or low pressure pulls. So my biggest complaint is that it wastes a lot of water in that process, which, if you're using an internal tank, can mean you've got maybe 5 to 7 shots per 2.5 liter fill. And even if you're plumbed in, it's not like you're saving that water, it's getting kicked straight down the drain, which isn't great from a sustainability perspective. The steam wand itself has two options for power. Either you can taper it, or you can click it into full on. When it comes to tapering, I find the activation lever a little awkward to use, since I essentially have to reach behind the wand to engage it and hold it into place while simultaneously focusing on steaming. Also, for a machine that's been around since 2008 and costs just shy of $8,000, it hasn't seen very many upgrades. And I can't help but feel like the keypad and screen functionality could, or honestly should, be better. Some machines do more with 2 buttons than the GS3 does with 6. And the screen itself is more fitting of a Casio wristwatch, not a premier brand espresso machine. Of course, you can skip the buttons and keypads altogether if you want to just use the connected app, which isn't necessarily specific to the GS3, but I will say it could use some work. It's riddled with crashes, failures to connect, not saving my settings, and just generally signing me out all the time. It just isn't a great experience. As of today, the GS3 has been on my bar for about 7 months, but even in that relatively short time frame, it hasn't been without its bumps in the road, including a warranty service around a seal in my group that had a bit of a leak, and the harsh reality of often dumping 6 ounces of water for a 2-ounce shot. But on the bright side, and even though I was already well versed in the world of espresso, the control of the paddle paired with the temperature stability of a large brew boiler has resulted in some of the best and most memorable shots I've had in recent years. And isn't that what we're all truly chasing? Shots of espresso that elevate our understanding of extraction, unlocking a coffee's potential, and inspire exploration. I know that seems sort of grandiose, but there comes a point in most coffee enthusiasts' journey where the end result in the cup becomes as important as the process of getting there. I'll be the first to tell you and to admit that the GS3 is not a perfect machine, and there are aspects of it that look and feel outdated. But like a classic sports car, it's those very same things that at the end of the day make it unique. And since it was one of the earliest options offering pressure control, and it was built on the reputation of La Marzocco, a storied brand with quite a history, it's hard to say that it doesn't have a countertop legacy. But today, in 2022, facing a market that's full of machines with the same or similar features, deciding if the GS3 MP is worth $8,000 isn't a decision based in reason. Instead, it's based on owning a piece of espresso history, a piece of La Marzocco's legacy, a machine that stands out in a market dominated by the E61. And of course, maybe just a smidgen of clout. But with all that said, I think it's time I wrap this one up and pass the conversation on to you. What are your thoughts on the GS3? What are your thoughts on the manual paddle? And do you think the history and legacy behind La Marzocco, it's fair to add any sort of monetary value to their machines? Drop your answers to those questions and any others you may have in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell button for notifications of new videos posted every Friday. Check out my Instagram at Sprometheus for content throughout the week, my blog at Sprometheus.com, my coffee at littlegiant.coffee, and as always, stay caffeinated. Pony Boy.